The 2024 supply chain crunch will change the world, and it's starting at the Red Sea. We're all aware of the conflicts out at the sea, as well as, the growing tensions between the United States and Iran. As this is happening, we also face challenges and threats from the likes of China, Russia, and even North Korea, putting our country in a very, very tight spot. Now, while the Biden administration has acted against Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, many are now saying that the game of chess has now just begun, and a counterattack that could possibly cripple the supply chain is almost here. This is a problem that some experts say has one very obvious solution, one that's not on the radar of our leaders though. The issue here is that we, the consumers, are the ones that are being affected directly.
The biggest thing here is obviously the impact for customers, for companies shipping cargoes, the impact on price, transit time as well. You mentioned Tesla having issues getting parts to manufacture goods. I think you're going to see that across a huge swath of companies, especially in Europe, but also in the East Coast. So there's delays, and then two's the price. The price of ocean freight has gone from, it's gone up about 4x, and not just from Asia to Europe, even from Asia to the US on the West Coast, where you would think it's not, from China to the West Coast of the United States shouldn't be impacted by the Suez on the surface, and yet it is. Prices have gone up about 3x, and this is partially because ships have been pulled off of that trade lane to provide the extra capacity needed to go from Asia to Europe because of the longer way around. It's also because all of these trades depend on the same asset, which is containers. And if there's not enough containers, then you're going to have to pay more to, for the ones that there are. And so you get a supply and demand dynamic that's driving up the costs of everything.
Now, anyone who follows the channel pretty much sees the writing on the wall with that one report, okay? And this isn't just the United States' problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a global issue now. It's now gotten to a point where experts are saying that the supply chain crisis that we're headed in is going to be worse than the one that we felt during the pandemic. I mean, look at what I got. Earlier this year, both Volvo and Tesla paused their production due to a shortage of components. This is what I show people when they tell me that 12% of global container traffic isn't that bad, right? Because when you think about it, 12%, it's not really a lot, right? But when you take into account that, we're talking about a global scale here, then these pauses in production start to really make a big deal, and it makes a lot more sense. And just to kind of give you guys a visual as to how far this trip is for these vessels, take a look at this. Do you see how far that trip is? It's like choosing the scenic route, but this one isn't romantic at all. Now, the only instance where we saw worse numbers was back in 2021 when a container ship called Ever Given blocked the Suez Canal. Now, this isn't to say that, we won't surpass that, but it is a scenario that none of us want to happen again. I definitely don't. And as you can see right here, the start of the pandemic caused this shock in the supply chain. However, these attacks, they're already much worse. Now, there's some key differences between the two. However, it still doesn't mean that things will be solved anytime soon. In fact, it's causing even more chaos across different markets and could possibly cause inflation to start shooting back up again. How? Well, many experts are already worried about the price of gas right now.
So developing this afternoon with the world's main trade route engulfed in conflict, we could start seeing gas prices start to rise. Over 2 months, Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have been attacking container ships in the Red Sea. Now, oil tankers, along with commercial ships, are avoiding this area. They're taking a much longer route that adds days to the journey. And as a result, we are already seeing higher oil prices. If energy prices spike, so could prices at the pump.
Now, the obvious question here is, can we afford to have higher prices for everything? I'm talking about higher prices for food, water, clothing. All of this will be impacted as the gas prices rise. So the next question is, are wages keeping up? Well, many Americans are saying that it's not keeping up with inflation alone. What more with the added pressure of a supply chain crisis? And how is this going to affect people on fixed income, Social Security, SSI, SSDI folks? Like, how big of an impact will this have on them? Now, there is a difference between the pandemic and the present times. Now, according to experts, we're looking at the possibility of vessels capacity that could be brought back. You see, it's normal during the early months of the year for vessel capacity to decline due to a decrease in container demand. This is because carriers bring the containers early, around October of the previous year, because they want to get ahead of the closing of the manufacturing plants for the holidays. Today, it's being being reported that new vessels are now available for work, compared to the health crisis when demand was incredibly high. But back then, there wasn't enough space on the vessels to accommodate all of the containers, which led to containers being delayed. The report also says that at least 10% of the world's fleet is currently not in service, meaning that, getting these vessels out to sea could probably help in delays and also normalize the supply chain before things got even worse. The outlook, though, for the Red Sea is becoming worse, even though there's a coalition of countries that are trying to protect it right now. Energy companies like BP and Shell have already said that they're going to avoid the Red Sea altogether, and the same could be said for other companies. It's also worth noting that the Houthi attacks, they're still going on today, and this is a huge problem not just for the United States, but for all of the countries involved in this.
The Red Sea continues to be on the boil. The US carried out its 5th strike against the Houthis, but that isn't deterring the Yemen-based rebel group, a fact which even the Biden administration is acknowledging now. The Houthis have struck yet another US ship in the Red Sea. The US president has acknowledged that the American and British bombardment is yet to stop the Houthi attacks on vessels. But despite that, he says the strikes will continue on the rebel group. Now, the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, claim to have achieved a successful hit on the US-owned tanker ship. The US military says that 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles were fired at the MV Chem Ranger tanker ship, but the missiles impacted the water near the ship. There were no reported injuries or damage. Now, earlier in the counter-strike, the US Navy's FA-18 fighter aircraft destroyed 2 Houthi anti-ship missiles. As per the US Central Command, the destroyed missiles were aimed at the southern Red Sea and were in full readiness for launch. The US, along with the UK, has been launching strikes against the Houthis, but the rebel group says it will continue the Red Sea attacks till the time Israel does not stop its assault on Gaza. Now, US President Joe Biden has said that the collaborative strikes against the Houthis will continue, even though it has not yet deterred the rebel group from targeting commercial and military vessels. The Biden administration, which relisted the rebel group under specially designated global terrorists, the US Pentagon also said that the deterrence has not immediately stopped the Houthi aggression, but has definitely lowered the frequency.
Which, by the way, has some experts calling out for something that's not new. We import a lot of supplies from other countries. I mean, we get a lot of our medical supplies from China, by the way. But what if, and hear me out on this, guys, what if we manufactured the supplies that we need here at home? Wouldn't that be something? That's a novel idea. He said novel. Yes, because we continue to rely on other countries for supplies that the American people need. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could just kind of just have it done here domestically, already on American soil, and then not even have to worry about supply chains? I mean, we can also export those same products if needed, but no, we continue to lean on other countries and at the same time continue to risk health and well-being of the American people. But hey, maybe you guys have an idea as to how this problem could be solved. As for myself, though, I'm going to do my best to keep you guys informed and updated on everything that's going on around us with this topic. But before I go, just want to thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for hitting the like button and for subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.